The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to St. Luke.
Glory to you, O Lord.
Jesus departed to the mountain to pray, and he spent the night in prayer to God. When day came, he called his disciples to himself, and from them he chose 12, whom he also named apostles: Simon, whom he named Peter, and his brother Andrew, James, John, Philip, Bartholomew, Matthew, Thomas, James, son of Alphaeus, Simon, who was called a zealot, and Judas, son of James, and Judas Iscariot, who became a traitor. And he came down with them and stood on a stretch of level ground. A great crowd of his disciples and a large number of people from all Judea and Jerusalem and the coastal region of Tyre and Sidon came to hear Jesus and be healed of their diseases. And even those who were tormented by unclean spirits were cured. Everyone in the crowd sought to touch him, because power came forth from him and healed them all. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Beloved brothers and sisters, it is very significant to note that Jesus spent so much of his limited time of his public ministry healing people. More than teaching, more than any other chore perhaps and any other ministry, it seems Jesus gave much of his time to attending to the sick. There is no doubt ministering to the sick in body and soul was a high priority for Jesus. His sensitivity for the suffering shines out with unparalleled brilliance through the Gospels. Sensitivity to people's hardships is a gift, but as any sensitive person will attest, it can also be a mixed blessing. Because when people are very sensitive not in the sense of picon, but sensitive in the sense of feeling deeply the pain of others, sensitive people usually suffer more because they feel pain, theirs and other people's, more intensely and many times in more unsettling ways. I am sure Jesus did not only minister to the sick in body. I'd like to believe he also ministered to people in emotional distress. And this seems to be more and more people suffering now, deep emotional pain in the wake of the events and the realities hitting us personally, hitting us as families, and hitting us as a nation. So what's to be done when a person is in deep emotional pain? What should we do when deep emotional pain paralyzes us and cripples us? What do I do when its crippling effect begins to manifest itself? The Dutch psychologist Anthony Vergote was once asked these questions at his classes, and his response was very humble. He began by saying that this is singularly the most difficult situation we will ever deal with. Inside ourselves, inside our families, inside our friendships, and even inside our own business ventures. He admitted that psychology was still grappling with what would be a helpful response. But he suggested that we try this. He started by saying that emotional distress is a form of over-concentration. It is a form of fixation with an emotion or a particular emotion, more accurately, or emotions. These emotions hold us in its grip until we manage somehow to break the spell. Vergotti continued, what may be helpful, he said, is distraction. When a person is so obsessed by pain, when a person is so oppressed by emotional strain, he says distraction is helpful. It can take the person's mind off that fixation. Now, this may sound crass, especially when our perennial religious advice when somebody is going through a hard time is take your troubles to the chapel or take a silent retreat. Shouldn't prayer be at least the beginning of a solution to it? Yes, but it has its dangers. If you are in the grip of paralyzing obsession with an emotion or a pain in your heart, if you are in the grip of a crippling emotional distress, and you are alone in a chapel, for example, alone anywhere might be the last place you need to be. Alone and emotionally paralyzed, the solitude might overpower you. In our darkest moments, it is the incarnate God, meaning the human touch of God through the care of someone, the concern of a friend, the company of people, which constitutes the real chapel that you need to go to. Therefore, it is not wise and it is not prudent to stay alone or enter into darkness you are going through alone. We need someone, a good friend, a spiritual director, a mentor, a doctor, a fellow sufferer, anyone. And being alone and isolated somewhere in order to think things through would be very dangerous. That is why you will notice how touch is a very important part to the healing process of Jesus in the gospel. It was not he only healed them from a distance, he touched them or they touched him. This human touch and this personal touch is so important when we are going through our distress or when people around us are going through their own distress. My dear brothers and sisters, that is why when we see somebody at home or we notice somebody at work or we notice a friend very emotionally disturbed, going through something, it is always paramount to reach out and to risk it and to ask them how they are, even if you are close enough to them to touch them, because this can do a lot of good. We should not presume and say they are all right, makakaya nila yan, or wag na akong makialam. Jesus, when he was dealing with people, reached out, and people reached out to him. My dear brothers and sisters, but if your trust in God is already strong enough, that irrespective of anything, you know that God is there for you, then you can risk entering that darkness even without human contact and consolation. However, most of us are not that strong enough. If we fear our wounded selves might render us helpless and desperate when we are alone, we will want to hold fast to the hand of a trusted friend. Look for any type of distraction that can break the obsession. And that is why it is always important that we reach out and that we know how to take care of ourselves as well. Jesus healed people. We are also called to heal one another. And this healing comes even by attention, affirmation, the human touch. Just asking people how they are and waiting for the answer, not just some routine asking, can make all the difference in the world.